All right, so this morning I'm going to be sharing from John chapter 19. If you have your Bibles, you can open it up to John chapter 19. I was reading this passage about a month or two ago, and I was reading it, and God just really ministered to me through this passage, and I wanted to share it with you this morning. And I think it's really even relevant, not necessarily a Christmas message, but I think it really ties into the Christmas season because the focus comes to Jesus. Now, in John chapter 18, Jesus has been betrayed. He's been arrested by the chief priests and the elders, and he has been brought before Pilate. Pilate is the governor, and the chief priests have brought him before Pilate, and Pilate is essentially questioning, like, who are you? Why are you here? We get this sense that pretty quickly that Pilate doesn't even think that Jesus belongs in front of him, where Jesus, there's nothing wrong. Like, why is he before me? I find no fault in him. And the chief priests, the Jews, keep pressing, to crucify him, to arrest him, to do something about, they want to get rid of Jesus, these chief priests. And so, Pilate thinks he finds a good solution. Well, we have a custom at this time that we'll put before you two prisoners and you can have one release. And he's thinking, surely they'll pick to release Jesus because he hasn't done anything wrong. In fact, he's done all these wonderful things. Surely the people will choose him. But the chief priests have pressured the people to choose Barabbas, who was the other prisoner. And so Pilate has presented the two. They've chosen Barabbas. And then what has happened after that, the soldiers brought Jesus in and they flogged him and they mocked him. And he's been beaten. He's been humiliated. Truly a horrific moment. And that's when we come to John chapter 19 and verse 6. And I'm going to read this passage with you, and then we're going to look at it a little bit more in depth. Chapter 19, verse 6. When the chief priest and the temple servants saw him, they shouted, "Crucify, crucify." Pilate responded, "Take him and crucify him yourselves, since I find no grounds for charging him." "We have a law," the Jews replied to him, "and according to that law, he ought to die because he has made himself the Son of God." And I'm going to stop right there just to clarify. The charge being brought against Jesus really is one of blasphemy. But that's not grounds in Rome to do anything about it. And so really they're going to try to appease to treason, to the Roman Empire through treason. He's claiming he's the king of the Jews. He's doing this, he's doing that. And so he has made himself the Son of God. When Pilate heard this statement, he was more afraid than ever. He went back into the headquarters and asked Jesus, "Where are you from?" But Jesus did not give an answer. So Pilate said to him, "Do you refuse to speak to me? Don't you know that I have the authority to release you and the authority to crucify you?" "You would have no authority over me at all," Jesus answered him, "if it hadn't been given you from above. This is why the one who handed me over to you has the greater sin." From that moment, Pilate kept trying to release him. But the Jews shouted, "If you release this man, you are not Caesar's friend. Anyone who makes himself a king opposes Caesar." When Pilate heard these words, he brought Jesus outside. He sat down on the judge's seat in a place called the Stone Pavement, but in Aramaic, Gabbatha. It was the preparation day for the Passover, and it was about noon. Then he told the Jews, "Here's your king." They shouted, take him away, crucify him." Pilate said to them, "Should I crucify your king?" "We have no king but Caesar," the chief priest answered. Then he handed him over to be crucified. And when I was reading this passage, I was, picturing Jesus before Pilate, and really was looking at this perhaps from the perspective of Pilate. And you look at this, and Pilate, he says, "I have the authority. I have this authority to save you." And really, he didn't, but he thought that he did. Jesus was surrendering his life to fulfill prophecy and to save people. But looking at this from the perspective of Pilate, he thinks he has the ultimate authority in this situation. He thinks that he can save Jesus. He thinks that he can crucify Jesus. He thinks he has the power. In reality, Jesus is the ultimate authority in that situation. He has the ultimate power. And yet he's surrendering it as he stands before Pilate. And I'm thinking, Pilate thinks he has the ultimate authority. And because he thinks that, he's really missing what's really before him. And that's the ultimate, that's the king of the universe, the creator, the one who created him, who formed him, is the very one standing before him. And I just think, man, Pilate is missing Jesus. Jesus is right before him, the ultimate authority and power, the great I am, the one who is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow is right before him, and he misses it. He misses this incredible opportunity to connect with Jesus, to know Jesus, to experience salvation. He misses this moment because he doesn't recognize who has the ultimate authority in that moment. He misses Jesus. And I thought, man, God, I don't want to miss you. I don't want to miss you. I know that you are right before me, that you are working, that you are moving, that you are leading, that you are guiding me, but I can miss that. And I don't want to. Jesus, help me not to miss you and what you're doing right in front of me. And I think we fall into that sometimes where God is there, God is moving, God is right before us, but we're missing him and what he's doing. And I see that for two reasons practically in my life, but even in this passage, see two reasons why we miss Jesus and what he is doing right before us. I'm going to share those two reasons. The first is this: we miss Jesus because we are so focused on the external circumstances. We're so focused on the distractions. We're focused on what's going on around us, on the people around us, on the situation. We miss God because we're focused on the external. I mean, look at this. Pilate says, we see, and not just here, but in different, Matthew, Mark, Luke, they all, account this same passage. And they're talking about how the crowd is becoming more restless, how the chief priests are stirring the crowd against Jesus. And so Pilate it really is focused on the crowd. It even says in verse 8 that he becomes more afraid than ever. He's afraid of the crowd. He's afraid of them becoming so riled up and so rowdy that perhaps something, happens where they try to start fighting or they try to overthrow. We don't know that for sure, but we know that the crowd is becoming more intense. And anyone, I would imagine, who would be in a situation where they have some authority over a restless crowd can maybe become a little nervous. And he's nervous of the crowd and their constant just sort of getting more anxious. And more so, he's concerned about maintaining that authority, right? He wants to appease the crowd. Ultimately, that's what he does, right? Ultimately, he turns them over to the chief priest. Why? Because he's concerned about what they are going to do. He's concerned about maintaining his position and maintaining his power, maintaining his authority. So Pilate was so focused on the crowd and what that might do to him that he misses Jesus right in front of him. That's the first reason. The second is this. The second is he's focused on himself. He's focused on himself. And so I know that probably more, I struggle more with focusing on myself than on the external distractions. I get preoccupied by how's this going to affect me? What about my feelings? What do they think about me? And so often we miss what God is doing right in front of us, or even Jesus right before us, because we're focused on ourselves. And when we set our focus on ourselves, we're not focusing ourselves, our vision and our focus on Christ. I mean, Pilate was so focused that I have the authority. I have the power to save you. I can do this for you. Answer me, these are my questions. I want to maintain this authority and power. Pilate was so focused on himself that he missed Jesus in front of him. And so these are two reasons why we potentially miss Christ and what he's doing before us, is because, one, we're focused on the external distractions. I don't know what's going on in your life. 2020 has been a really hard year for everyone. No one has been left untouched by just the craziness of this year. And that doesn't even go on to, what's going on personally in your life. Maybe in your marriage, it's struggling. There's tension, there's frustration. Perhaps it's outside relationships where there's some tension, or maybe someone's hurt you and betrayed you. parenting can be really hard, and just the tension and the temper tantrums, and just there's so many things going on around us, external distractions, that if we aren't so secure and intentional about keeping our focus on Jesus, those external distractions can add up really quickly, and we can start focusing on all the other things. We focus on everything but Christ. We can't focus on what is going on in our life. We have to focus on who is the most important person in our life, and that's Jesus. Taking our focus off of the what and putting it on the who, and that's on Christ. The other one is the focus on ourselves, right? It can be really easy to just, in your pain, focus on your emotions, on your hurt. And you should look at those, because those are indicators of what's going on in your life and can help you work through things. But focusing on yourself really is pride, right? When you take the focus off of Jesus and you put it on yourself, that's pride. And we wouldn't say that's, when I'm focusing on my pain or my hurt or how this might affect me, we may not identify or label that as pride, but indeed it is. Pride is when we take our focus off of Jesus and put it on ourselves. And so, the best definition of humility I've ever heard is from Rick Warren, and it's not thinking less of yourself, it's just thinking of yourself less often, right? It's putting that focus on Jesus, keeping Christ at the center. And so this isn't necessarily a Christmas passage, but I find it so timely for the Christmas season, because there's so many things going on in our lives, so many external distractions. Normally I would say parties, but I doubt parties are in our agenda these days. But the Christmas shopping and the holiday, taking care of all the holiday food and dinners and, all of the just things that come with Christmas, they're fun and they're exciting, but they can be a huge distraction from Christ. This is kind of random and I wasn't going to talk about this, but my sister-in-law was like, you should get Elf on the Shelf. It's so much fun. The kids love it. And there's nothing wrong with Elf on the Shelf. But for me, I already see Roman becoming focused on Santa Claus. And I'm just like, okay, I don't need him to have one more distraction, because I'm really trying to maintain this focus on Jesus in a world that wants to put his focus on everything else, on Santa Claus, on elves, on Christmas movies, presents. So we've incorporated Advent. Last year we started incorporating Advent, and that's just been a beautiful way with Rome to keep our focus on Christ in this holiday season. But there are so many distractions. And if we're not careful, we'll allow those to sweep us away from the true focus of the season. That's Jesus. And it shouldn't just be Christmas, but it should be every day. Jesus is the reason. Jesus is our focus. Jesus is our everything. And anytime we take our focus off of him, we're essentially saying we're putting our focus and our trust and our authority and our hope in these outside distractions or in ourself. I can do this. I can do this. Whatever that looks like for you. I want you to walk away from this morning with just truly wanting to evaluate, are there any distractions in my life? Am I maybe too focused on, an external relationship that is struggling, or am I too focused on the financial difficulty that we are in? Are we too focused? I love what Nicole shared at our last event. She's not here, but she shared, facts aren't truth. Facts aren't truth. And that's really stuck with me, where yes, it can be your finances can be struggling right now, or you could be maybe your job's in limbo, or maybe this relationship's hurting. That's a fact. But that's not the truth. The truth is in Jesus Christ and what he has offered us and what he extends to us. And that is peace and hope and healing and provision and restoration and redemption. That's the truth. And so we can look at the external circumstances, and yes, those are very much could be a fact in your life, but it's not the truth. And I just hope that you'll walk away this morning focusing, just evaluating, what are those distractions in my life? Whether it's external or it's internal. What are those distractions in my life that are taking my focus off of Jesus? It could be good things. It could be good things. It could be the holiday season. That's a good thing. It could be maybe a work opportunity or ministry opportunity. Those are good things, but we can't allow the good things to take the position of the most important thing, and that's Jesus. And so, evaluate what those are, and my heart and my prayer, not just for you, but for me, because I get caught up in the things around me as well, or what I'm battling internally. I went through just what felt like a little bit of a betrayal a couple weeks ago. And it wasn't huge and it wasn't big, but it affected me more than I thought that it would. And it's something I was kind of really wrestling with. I can't allow that pain that I felt to take the position of God is working, God is moving, God is still doing something good through that person. God is doing something good through me. They don't have to coexist together. God can work separately, but just keeping the focus on Jesus in this season. And so that's my heart. That's my prayer for us as we move from this place today, is that we would just evaluate what are those distractions and eliminate them. Eliminate the distractions from our life and press into Jesus. I honestly love Jennifer's constantly, whenever she talks, whenever she writes, she's always talking about pressing into Jesus, rooting ourselves in Christ. She's always bringing it back to a central message of Jesus. And I'm so grateful for you, Jennifer, just always reminding us to keep our focus on Christ. And that's really my prayer and my hope for us today and in this season, is to focus on that. So I'm going to close this in prayer, and then we'll do a couple announcements, and then we can chat. God, thank you so much for, again, today, God, for this message that you've been working in my heart. And I believe it's a message that you have for this group right here and anyone who hear this message, because God, we know that things aren't an accident. God, that you orchestrate people to be places and to receive messages, and you orchestrate that. And so this message that you have for us this morning, may we not just walk away and say, oh, that was interesting, and then walk away and forget about it. But God, may we really just sit down with you and evaluate those distractions in our lives, whether it's an external or an internal distraction. May we not be like Pilate, who had Jesus right before him and totally missed the opportunity to connect with the Creator because he was so focused on the crowd and focused on himself. God, may we release those distractions and remove those distractions and focus solely on you. God, you are our everything. God, you are our everything. God, we are maintained and sustained and provided for. And we breathe because of you. And God, may we not get distracted, but keep our focus on you, on the great work that you have done and continue to do in our lives. And God, my prayer is for this group of women is that when people see each and every single one of these women, they would see you in them. They would see Jesus in them, because God, they are so focused on you and just want to just radiate the love of Christ in their lives. God, we thank you. And God, we give you all the glory, honor, and praise. Amen.